Hi everyone, Bruce here at eTrailer. Today we're going to take a look at and install the Fastway E2 weight distribution with 2 points of sway control on our 2018 GMC Sierra 1500. Now, if you recently just bought a camper and you've got your truck hooked up and you're noticing the truck squatting and the front end sitting way up and your trailer sitting way down, you may need a weight distribution system, and this one will actually work out very well for you. It's an easy install. Now, if you notice in your camper swaying as you're going down the road, this is actually going to help that out as well. It's got 2 points of sway control. You got a bar on the right side and a bar on the left side, and what happens if your trailer does start swaying, these will rub in there and scuff some of that speed off and keep it from swaying. If you are getting a bigger camper and you've got a smaller truck like a 1500, I highly recommend you go this direction. It's just going to make a safer trip down the road. Now, as far as the install goes, it's really not too bad, but if you don't have the want or the tools to do it, check out our dealer locator on etrailer.com. But if you want to give it a try, stick around, I'll show you how. And if you've got any questions on it, whether it's install questions or you're just not sure of the correct hitch that you really need, let us know. Now, we do have our camper hooked up to our vehicle, and this is before we do the weight distribution. I'm going to take a couple of measurements. On the rear, we're sitting from the ground to the inside of the wheel well, we're looking at 37 inches. Now, you do need to purchase a ball mount for your hitch, so just make sure that the ball mount actually matches the coupler size, and you're going to want to get an 1.25 inch shank. You can do an inch shank, but you'll need a bushing to go in here, so I just recommend you go 1.25 inches. And we do need to torque this down, and you're probably going to want to take it somewhere and go ahead and get it torqued down because you're probably not going to have the equipment to do it. Now, once you have your ball mounted to your hitch, now we can go ahead and disconnect the camper if you've already had it connected. And what we're going to do is we're going to level the camper. And the way we're going to do that is you're going to measure the front of the camper and the back of the camper, and those two numbers need to match. In order to do that, you need to be on level ground, and you're just going to raise and lower the hitch here just to get it level on the front and the back. Once you do have the camper leveled, the next step we need to do is go ahead and measure from the ground to the top of our coupler. And our measurement is about 22.5 inches. And the reason we're measuring that is we've got to put the ball mount onto our shank, and that's going to tell us how high we need to go. And you need to be, according to the manufacturer's instructions, we need to be 0 to 1 inch higher than our coupler on our ball. So let's go ahead and start mounting our ball, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now that we got the measurement on our coupler, we can go ahead and grab our ball mount and mount it to our shank. I'm going to go to the top holes on this particular one, and you can turn this over if you need to come up a little higher. On our case, I had to turn it this way, and we should be good to go here. I'm just going to loosely put it in here. You're going to have the big bolts, and then you're going to have the tooth washers, and make sure the tooth washer goes towards the actual hitch. So now that I just have this set in here, I am going to go ahead and take a measurement and see how close we actually are. So we are sitting at 22 3/4. So we are a 1/4 inch higher here than we are on our coupler, but that should put us pretty darn close. Now that we do have our ball mount set to the correct height, I am going to go ahead and remove it because we do have washers that we do have to put on the back side of here. So these washers, they recommend to use 6. Sometimes you may use 5, and that's just going to adjust the tilt of our head. And then you've got this pin. So let me go ahead and get this back off. So this is where our little pin's going to go and our washers. You're going to take your washers, and what I did here is just use some packing tape so it makes it a little easier to manage so they're not all flopping around everywhere. We're going to take that and put our pin in the washers and then set that down in the hole like so. Now we can go ahead and throw this back into the position that we had it set up for. Now, the way we want that is the pin and washers need to sit flat up against it. So now this is our angle set bolt. So now that we do have our bolts into our hitch, what I'm going to do is tighten this up until our pin and washers are flat against the back of the hitch there. And that's good. And then we want to go, once it's snug, we want to go an additional half a turn. So I'm going to go from here. And that should be good enough. And right now we are going to leave these bolts loose because we may have to make some more adjustments later. Now we're going to go ahead and measure for our sway control brackets. And what we need to do is measure from the center of our coupler to the back of the frame, A-frame here, and that's going to be 30 inches. Now, if any of this stuff is in your way, you can go to a minimum of 27 inches, but no more than a maximum of 30. They want you to start out at 30. So if you do have to move some of this stuff, which you may have to do, I don't think we will in our particular case, but let's go ahead and measure and see. Going to 30 inches, I'm going to place a mark there, and then I'm actually going to take one of our brackets, and what I'm going to do here is just, in order for me to make a straight line, I'm just going to draw that guy over straight down, and that is actually going to be the center of our bracket, that line. So we're going to center our bracket between this line. So it's essentially going to go on something like that, but you'll see that in a minute. So now it's time to go ahead and put our link plates on, but before we do that, we need to look at our coupler and figure out if it's a top-mounted coupler or it's a bottom-mounted coupler. Now, looking at ours, we do have a top-mounted coupler. So following our installation, if you don't have a top-mounted coupler, it's probably going to be wrong. So just follow along if you've got the top-mounted one. Now you're going to have a 1/2 inch by 4 inch bolt that you're going to put in the top here, and then a lock washer and a nut. And that same thing is going to go on the bottom. So let's go ahead and place this where our marks are on our frame. And it's just going to fit right over the top. Right where our marks are, we want that in the center of our mark. And we're going to take our bolt. Now you want to go in this hole here because that's closest to the frame. You don't want to go down here. It's not going to work very well. Get our lock washer, put that on the back side. And our nut. Now we're just going to take it and make sure we do have it centered before we start tightening it down. Now we need to go ahead and snug our bolts up. But the way we're going to do this, since it is pinching on the frame, you're going to want to do the bottom one first, and you're going to kind of want to hold these together so they are up against the frame, because you don't want to pull these in and bend them. So just make sure they are both sitting flat on the frame, and we're going to go and just snug these up about a 1/2 turn each time until we get them tight. Once we do have them snugged up, we will come back by and torque them down because they do have a torque spec on them. And if you don't have a torque wrench, you can rent one from your local auto parts store, or we do carry them here at eTrailer. Now you can go ahead and grab your L bracket, and we're going to mount it to the outside plate here that has the studs coming off of it, and we're going to go in the 2 center holes. That's how we're going to start out. We may have to adjust it after we do have it on. So we're just going to snug them up. We're not going to tighten them down too much because we might have to readjust this. Now we can go ahead and grab our spring bars. Now, before we put these in, we are going to grease the trunnion here, and it's just going to take a little bit of light grease. Now, it doesn't matter which side these bars go on. This one can go on the left or the right and vice versa. But let's go ahead and take a little bearing grease, and we're going to grease the trunnion before we install it. And it's not going to take a whole lot. You just want a thin layer on here, and just look at the maintenance and the instructions as well, because you're going to have to do this, clean them off and redo it every so often. Now grabbing our bar again. So the bigger end, you notice the pin here on the bottom side is thicker than the top one. That's going to go to the bottom. And the way we're going to do that is you're just going to insert it into the bottom, and then you're just going to rotate the bar up and it will lock into place. It's normal for them to hang down at an angle that they are. That's perfectly fine, so don't worry about that. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and take some measurements. And the measurement I want to take first is without the camper hooked up to our truck. And you're going to want to do this when your truck is fully loaded, ready for a trip, along with your camper. That's the best way to set up a weight distribution, is when you're getting ready to haul down the road. It's whatever weight is in the camper and your truck. So the first measurement I'm going to take is going to be at the front, and I'm just going to measure from the ground to the bottom of the wheel well. And on the front, we've got 38.5 inches with nothing connected to the vehicle. Now, just remember, after you do hook up, you do need to take that front wheel measurement to the wheel well again and write that number down. Now that we are hooked up, it's time to go ahead and put our bars into place. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and lift the truck and the trailer up with the trailer jack. What we're doing here is going ahead and raising the camper and the truck up at the same time in order to get our bars on. If you notice, I lift this up and it's not quite there. What I'm doing is trying to get it close, so with this bar will just slide right onto this L bracket. That should work out. Now we can grab our bar and let's go ahead and lift up on it a little bit and slide it in. Now we've got these little clips that do hold the bars in. It's going to go in the square slot, the L pointed towards the trailer, and then you're going to go ahead and put your pins in. You're going to do that same thing on the other side. Now, if you're having trouble installing the bar up on the L bracket, that's what this tool is for. And what you're going to do is take the bar like so, and that hook is going to go in the square. And then all you're going to do is raise up on your tool, and it'll slide right in. But the recommended way is the way I showed you earlier, where you raise it up high enough where you can just hand do that bar. Now that we do have our bars hooked up, we're going to lower the camper and the truck back down till the jack is up off the ground, and then we'll go ahead and take our measurement at the front and see where we're landed to see if we've got to make any adjustments. Now we're back up front of the truck, and we're going to go ahead and take our measurement from the ground to the bottom of the wheel well. Again, remember, our measurement was 38.5 when we didn't have anything hooked up to the truck. Let's go ahead and measure it with our bars on there and the camper hooked up. And we are exactly at 38.5. So what that's telling me is we do have it adjusted properly. Now, if you have to make some adjustments, the first adjustment you really want to do is those washers on that pin. Just take one out at a time and check it again. With everything set up the way we want it, now we can go ahead and make sure we torque all of our bolts down. And I'm going to start with the L bracket. And it'll tell you what they need to be at. From there, all we really need to do is just make sure we torque all of our bolts down, and then we can hit the road. And that completes our installation of the Fastway E2 weight distribution with 2 points of sway control on our 2018 GMC Sierra 1500. I'm Bruce. Thanks for watching.